I think. Great. Okay, we're officially starting again. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Kramer, um, and I am here to help co-host the next INSIP or International Coalition for Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership, uh, in- International Coalition for Children of Incarcerated Parents webinar. And this webinar is titled Reflections on the Wells of Hope Study Week in Uganda, Building a Model Program for Children with Incarcerated Parents in an Underprivileged Country. And I will pause here and allow my co-host, co-presenter, Francis Subi, to introduce himself, the most distinguished and amazing Francis, who I think is even more amazing after having spent some time with him in Uganda. So Francis, would you like to introduce yourself? Francis, you're on mute.
Yeah, my name is Francis Suvi. I've removed my specs because most people are not used to seeing me with glasses. So my name is Francis Suvi. I'm the founder of Wells of Hope Ministries, located here in Uganda. And yeah, we help children that have a parent in prison. We've been doing this for the last 22 years. And I'm also glad to be one of the founders of INSIP. And yeah, it's really was a great opportunity to have Karine and Katie and Tamara come on the study week for children that have a parent in prison that usually hold every year. It was a great time, and I'm so delighted. At the same time, I'm honored, and I just want to also thank you that you've given it more time to talk about it. I thought the conversation would end at the airport, but you've continued to talk about it even today. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. It's as Francis said, once you go to Uganda, you're in the Wells of Hope family for life. So I'm very excited to share with all of you a bit more in depth about the week and some of the reflections. And I think because we're a bit of a smaller group, before we get started, maybe we'll have a chance to do a quick um, introductions of folks on the call. And especially I know we have two others who have both Sarah and then, as Francis mentioned, Karine, have been to the study week as well. So maybe we can do a quick round robin of introductions, and I'll go ahead and actually unping us for this. And yeah, if people are able, let's do a round of introductions for others who are on the call. And let's start with Julie. You're at the top of my screen. Uh, can you introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Julie Hourigan. I'm the CEO of Shine for Kids. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, and we are a national organisation that works to support kids who have a parent in prison, but also we work with parents who are incarcerated. We deliver parenting programs to help them post-release.
Thank you, Julie. Sarah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Beresford. I'm an associate of the Prison Reform Trust here in the UK, and my focus is on the use of child impact assessments to support children with a parent in the justice system. And I was really delighted back in the day when I worked for Nancy's organisation, Families Outside, that I got to spend a week at the study week. So I know Francis well, and it's just great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. And we'll certainly want to hear some, and we'll have a time to talk a bit about reflections in the study week. And I'm going to give my reflections and asking Karine to do so as well. And Sarah, we would love for you to maybe give some of your reflections as well at that point, if you so feel inclined. Nancy, could you introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. So I'm Nancy Laux. I'm Chief Executive at Families Outside here in Scotland, and I also chair the International Coalition. So lovely to see you all.
Wonderful. And next I have Jadia. I'm not sure if I'm saying your name right, so please correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a chance to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. My name is Love Mochi Kwanda from Jedida Trust in Zimbabwe. I'm the founder and chief executive officer, and we have been in operation in Zimbabwe for the past 5 to 6 years, trying to better the lives of children impacted by parental incarceration, and at the same time assisting the parents to continue parenting whilst behind bars. And I'm so glad to be on this platform right now. In fact, I'm not glad, I'm very happy to be a part of people who are like-minded. And hopefully with the passage of time, Nancy and Tim who allow Jedida Trust to be part of INSIP, and will be working together to impact more lives. Thank you.
Wonderful. Very, very excited to have you here. Love More. Thank you, Nancy. So Love More is your name. Yes, did I get that right then? And okay. And we definitely need to talk. I was just in Zimbabwe before Uganda. So I had a brief chance
Oh,
to visit with your beautiful, beautiful country. So much more to talk about.
thank you.
Yeah. Great to have you. And indeed, part of what, and I'm not sure if you've had a chance to connect with Francis, but part of the conversation we had while we were in Uganda is also about how to help support building an African-based network for those throughout the African continent who are doing this amazing work and may have, good opportunities and a value for folks to connect as well. Aileen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Katie. Aileen Keys. I am running the Children with Incarcerated Parents Initiative in Connecticut. We've been doing it for about 17 years. We receive most of our funding from the state government, specifically to support kids who are parent in prison. I won't go on for too long, but we've done lots of different things over the years with the funds. Some things that might be of interest. We have a frequently asked questions booklet for the different members of the family. We have a children's website that's all cartoon-like, where it gives real accurate information, at least for Connecticut facilities and courtrooms for kids. Kids can click on the different people and players and kind of go into the different rooms and stuff within the prison or in a courthouse. An attachment scale specifically for kids who are parent incarcerated, and a family reentry workbook that we haven't piloted yet, but we're hoping to pilot that to help families really consider intentionally and have conversations with each other about what to expect when the parent comes home. But I'm actually going to have to unfortunately log off at one point because I have another meeting, but then I'll watch the recording. So I'm excited to hear the conversation though. Nice to meet everybody.
Thanks, Aileen. Good to see you again. And if you could drop in the chat, you said you had a change in university affiliation. So I'm curious where you are, where you've landed these days. And lastly, we have Karine, who hopefully I know had some trouble signing in, but is here now and coming off camera. Hello,
Hello,
Karine.
everyone. Good evening. My name is Kirina Tanya. I'm from Tobago. I apologize for earlier. I was trying to connect on my phone and it didn't work out quite as well as I hoped, so I switched to my laptop. I also had understood that this meeting was at 8:30 my time because GMT at GMT -5. So 1:30 GMT translated to 8:30 my local time. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to look to leave shortly because the time kind of clashes now. But I just wanted to come on and say hello.
So wonderful to have you, Karine. Good to see you again. So so we will get started. I know some folks have to leave, and again, we will make the recording available after for those who need to leave early. Again, my name is Katie Kramer. I am co-founder and CEO for the Bridging Group. We're a group in Oakland, California. We provide a lot of research, evaluation, training, and capacity strengthening with nonprofits, NGOs, and government agencies working with folks who are impacted by criminal legal systems and their loved ones. And I am a social worker by training. So prior to that work, I worked in many California and US prisons and jails working with people who are incarcerated, their loved ones at home. And I am also on the board of INSIP, So very happy you're all here. So we'll go ahead and get started. And Francis, we thought we'd start with just you giving us a brief overview for those who've not been, an overview about the study week and about Wells of Hope, actually, to start, and just kind of your triangle model that you've created in Uganda. So Francis, I'll turn it over to you.
Can you allow me to share screen at one point? Will you allow me to share screen?
Yes, let me see how to do that on.
So I greet you
Julie?
all. Thank you very much. I'm honored to be here to speak with you about this important subject, children that have a parent in prison. I will not speak a lot. I just want to be brief. Wells of Hope is a charity in Uganda that has been working for 22 years, helping children that have a parent in prison. We also did a pilot
Francis,
project
I'm
in
sorry. Francis, could you just pause 1 second? I'm on Julie's Zoom, so I'm not, Julie, I'm not quite sure how to give sharing permission here.
I think Francis should be able to share. It was initially set up that multiple people could share.
Okay, great. So Francis, I think if you just click the share button on your screen, you should be able to share.
Okay. So again, we have been helping children that have a parent in prison for 22 years. And in 2017, we opened up in Kenya and in Tanzania just to do a pilot project to help the children there. And it was successful. And it gave us an idea to go further and see how we help other charities in Africa to help children that have a parent in prison by duplicating our model. But for today's discussion, I just want to talk about what we do in Uganda. And one thing that the study week usually highlights is what we call the model. Wait a bit, I want to share the screen so that I can show you the model. We call it the triangle of the child. The triangle of the child, that's the family and the parent in prison, is one of the key strengths of Wells of Hope. By addressing the triangle of a child's life, the likelihood is that an impact will be made on the difficulties that children face. I'd listed earlier on the difficulties in this PowerPoint, but I don't want to go into all that. Otherwise, I would be preaching to the choir, or what they call singing to the choir, because we know that these children are likely to drop out of school, they will suffer trauma, they will suffer they will be subject to many risks. And we all know that. So at Words of Hope, in addressing this, we use the triangle model. And Dr. Owen Gill, by then, was working with Barnardos. He was the first person who visited us on a study week. We had earlier on arranged a conference, and it didn't work out. And he had paid a ticket to come to Uganda. And he said, let me come anyway, because we had postponed it. He said, let me come. So after visiting us, he said, do a study week instead of a conference. And he came up with this triangle. He helped us to see this triangle. We were doing all this work, but we didn't know that our work was rotating about this triangle. So in addressing the problems that these children are likely to face, we use the triangle. What's this triangle all about? This triangle has the child at one point of the triangle, as the family in the community at one point, and then the parent in prison. And we are so keen about this and so careful. In other words, we emphasize the parent in prison, because being in prison does not stop one from being a parent. And the whole journey of helping children that have a parent in prison starts with the parent in prison. At Words of Hope, they give us the directions. They write down the directions of where their families are and any kind of details that they are able to give us. And as you know, here in Uganda, Africa, maybe all together, we don't have like clear addresses, or clear maps. But anyway, because of the phones, we some people have phones or they draw maps, we are able to locate. And everybody who comes for the study week, they have to go through this. And Kate, you remember very well, you had to go and visit the parents in prison. Then at one point, you were able to go to see the families in the community. And I think you share how at one point you almost got lost or you could not get to the families. Yeah, we go on tracing. So from the prison, we go do tracing. You may call it tracking. So we trace these families. Sometimes you may not find the children, or if you find them, they may not have a caregiver or anything you may find there. Anyway, if you are able to find the children, we tell the guardians to bring the children to the schools. Before then, we just had one school, but now we have two schools. We have a high school and we have a primary school, or you'd call it an elementary school. And at the school, we do a lot for these children. We provide them education. They are provided with a bed. It's a residential school. They are provided food. And we try to show them love. About 4 years ago, we began a program that helps these children who are not able to go back during the holidays, or you call them the school breaks. We call it Family-Based Care Project, where we try to make sure that before even we think of the child coming to Words of Hope, we have to ensure that they have a family. If they don't have any family at all, then we provide them foster care opportunities to be raised by a foster parent. And foster care here in Uganda is not like in other countries where the foster parents are paid. Here they do it voluntarily. It's just in rare cases where maybe if they have gotten too many children, from like 2 or 3 children, they may ask a contribution of the tuition fee of some of the other children. But if it's just one child, they will pay the tuition fee for that child and do everything. So as per today's discussion, I think the best I can do is to share about the triangle model. And that's how it operates, very simply like that. Everything rotates about that. But just to conclude, the children, when they come to school, that's where miracles begin, and they are able to be provided the opportunity to visit the parent in prison. They come at the school, then we use the school to do everything. They connect with the parent in the prison. We are able to put them on a bus 3 times a year, and they're able to visit their parents in prison. Usually it is something they really look forward to. I think I can show here a picture when they're in a bus going to see the parent in prison. And the kind of visits that we do have here, they are contact visits where the parents are allowed to interact with the children. There is a direct visit, and it's really, really something that you can't easily find or do if, say, the children were to visit with maybe other caregivers but with us, the prison authorities allow them to have that interaction, to have that direct visit where they're able to hug, they're able to talk. And these children sometimes, or many times, they work like the main contact between the parent in prison and the parent in prison. I don't know if you can see some of these photos here of the visits in prisons.
Yeah,
So
Francis, if you want to just keep scrolling through your pictures, I just think they're remarkable. So we
I'm
still
just
see the
showing
picture of the children on the bus still, but I think maybe the next
Oh
one.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, is inside the prisons. The parents sit with the prisons and they're able to interact. So, and this is one of the greatest things that these children usually look forward to. Yes. And I think that's what I can share for now about the triangle model.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do you want to share a few more of the pictures or no? We're
That's what I could share about the visit.
Have we just lost both of them? There we go.
I'm back.
Back.
Sorry about that. I'm not quite sure. Can folks hear me? Yes. Okay. So I think we have lost Francis and my screen is frozen for some reason, of course. All right. Well, let's just keep moving forward. For some reason, I'm off camera. So I will just, until Francis is back, maybe I'll just start to give a brief overview of the study week. Again, we have a few folks who have done the study week before, and Francis spoke to it. There we go. There I am. Okay, I'm back. It's gonna be one of those days. I think it may vary a bit of how the study week is arranged of on which days, but for the most part, I think the focus areas for each day haven't. So as we arrived, and Corinne, you're still with us, so please, and Sarah. So I feel like I have a few other experts here on the phone, on the call, and it looks like Francis is coming back as well. But I'll go ahead and start to give an overview, and once we have Francis back, I'll turn it back over to him to fill in the details. But the first day for us, we went around and visited the many different sites of Wells of Hope, and well, as Francis mentioned, there are a few different areas in which they're providing services. So we were able to visit. There he is. You back with us, Francis?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'd completed, I think, but I got an internet problem.
Yes, I think we both did at the same time, of course.
Mm.
So I was just
So
starting
you
to
want
talk.
to talk about the study week, how it happens?
Yes, please. That would be great.
Okay, the first day usually at the study week, we visit the offices of Wells of Hope. And then the second day, we go to the prison and we visit the prison. So they'll take you to the prison, not as if you've committed a crime, but just to visit. It's usually fun here when you say we are taking you to the prison. You only go there to visit. And then the third day, we go to the schools. You visit the schools and you're able to interact with the children. And then the fourth day is the community visits where you're visiting the families and trace children and see how the tracing is done. And usually we have the last day as a day for debrief.
Wonderful. Thank you,
And that's
Francis.
mm.
So we thought we'd maybe just go through each day and maybe take a little bit of a deeper dive into what happened each day and some reflections for each day. So as Francis mentioned, the first day, we spent some time visiting the different offices at Wells of Hope. And I would say in that first day, it became very, very clear that of just the breadth of services that Wells of Hope is providing. And in particular, I think one thing that stood out to me is just how much Wells of Hope will respond to, like Francis had the original idea for Wells of Hope, and then as it just has evolved so much based on as Wells of Hope has learned more about what's happening with the families and the needs, and as a new need or a new opportunity arises, they'll just jump on it and make it happen. So Francis, I thought maybe you could share a little bit more about, and you started to talk about it, but just maybe a little bit of some of your other services, such as the women's reentry home and some of your family support services, just a little bit more. And as Francis is doing that, I'm going to bring up a few pictures of some of these sites and services. So Francis, can you share a little bit more maybe about like the women's reentry home and how some of your services came to be and how you develop these programs as you identify them as they come to be?
Okay, thank you so much. So we have what we call the Women's Safe Home. The Women's Safe Home came as a result of a study that we did while we were trying to get a reentry guide. We asked the women that if you are to be released from prison, what would you really want? And we thought that maybe they would say they want monies, though that's also very important to start off again. But we were amazed when they said all they wanted was a place where they can stay before they can go anywhere else. And so we got a friend of ours, she's called Susan Button. You can Google about her. And she has a charity that is based in Los Angeles. It's called the Women's Safe Home. Oh, good. You have some of those photos. Wonderful. So the women come there and they're able to reside there. First of all, we pick them from the prison on the day of release, and we bring them to the safe home. And they can stay there for a month or up to 6 months. But normally we try to do a shorter period, maybe 2 months. And then we give them a package to go back home. That's the office. Yeah, I think, yeah, that's the office, the head office of Wells of Hope. And you can see our friends there. Yeah. So I think I've mentioned about the women's home. So how does the women's home connect with all this? You may ask yourself a question. So this is what happens. There are cases where we go to the prison and we find a mother. And then the mother will tell us that I left my children home. I even don't know if they know that I'm here. I was not given an opportunity to say goodbye. Nobody knows that I'm here. And then we'll go to the communities and trace for these children. After we trace for these children, we bring them to Wells of Hope, or we get them into foster care. And while that is going on, we go back to the mother and say, what can we do for you to come out of this place? Because in most cases, we find they're there for just very petty offenses, or even though they are big cases, but all they need is representation. So we are able to provide legal services. Yeah, that's the safe home. And you see, those are women. You can see those photos. Yeah, up there in the corner is Susan Button, but all these other photos are women who have been through the women's safe home. And you can see that lady there, sandwiched between Katie and Karen. That lady, Mariam, our children were left by themselves. So we brought them to Wells of Hope, and then we provided that legal services for 1.5 years. And then she comes out. She comes to the women's safe home, stays there for some time. We help her to reconnect with the children, and then she goes home. So that's how it all works out with the safe home.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And as we're doing this, I thought, Francis, I would just bring up your team, and then we can move on to the prison visits, which I do not have pictures of. And
yeah, prisons, yeah, it's very difficult to have photos.
Yes.
So I don't know. We failed to get any photo. Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least I've shown you the photos of the children visiting the parents in prison.
Yes. 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 And I thought we could do one more, which I love, of the safe home before we move on. Sorry, folks. There's so many.
Something more about the safe home. After the woman is released, we connect her with a support group. It's called Formerly Incarcerated Women Association. So that through that, they continue to get support and to encourage them. And by the way, some of them, even when they are released, they have legal issues. Maybe they can't get their children. The children were taken away from them. Maybe they have issues to do with their property. So we offer them legal services. So the lady there, that is Joanne. We call her Aunt Joanne. She is the caretaker or the custodian of the women's safe home. And in the background there is the accountant, Sandra.
Yes. And I'll say that the home is just beautiful. It's such a beautiful home. It's such a welcoming home. And, it really, I've had the chance to work in and help run, many homes for folks who are returning home. And this home was one of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. It just had so much heart. It really felt like this just special, beautiful home. And what an important and wonderful place that's not only safe, but, for folks to feel whole
Katie,
again.
talk about the food. You want to talk about that food? Don't you see the food that was going to be?
I am. And so the segue part of it being such a home is just the incredible food that Wells of Hope is cooking. And boy, did they roll out the red carpet for us. And we just had such incredible meals, a few different meals at the Safe Home. And there you can see our feast and everybody working so hard. And what I loved is it was true local home cooking and Ugandan food. And Francis, I'm not sure if I can remember all of the pieces, but what you see in the background is this soup that was made with banana leaves and this chicken soup
It's
in
called
Uganda.
Luwombo.
Ruan
Luwombo.
Luombo.
Yeah, you can Google and find out what Luwombo means.
So good, so
So
amazing.
it's
And
like, yeah, it's like it is steamed. The chicken or whatever they may put there is steamed, or the meat.
it was incredible. It tasted so good. And I loved um, the nut soup, the nut sauces, and the ground nut sauces and stews. So we just really felt not only really it was such an opportunity to visit in the Safe Home, but we really were welcomed into the home as well. So that was beautiful.
May I
Um,
ask how many mums can stay at the Safe Home at any one time, please?
Or they can be 8, but normally we have like 2, 3, but we have a maximum of 8 that can be there.
And Francis, just can you briefly share, and then we probably should move on. So Susan Burton came to visit, and if you work in the US, you certainly know of her good work, but came to visit from the time that her visit and talk with the women in the prisons in Uganda. This is one of the things that just stood out to me. And the women shared that they needed a place to come home. So from the time this issue was raised in the visit with Susan Burton, and then from that moment until you open the doors for the Wells of Hope Safe Home, how long was it, Francis?
So, like, she came in, it was 2019. In 2019, at the end, I think it was at the end of 2019, and we're going into the new year. So when she came and she met a lady, when we took her to the prison, she met a lady there called Annette. And she asked Annette, "What can I do for you? What do you think you need?" I said, "I'm coming out next week. I want somewhere to stay." So Susan Button said, asked me, "Francis, what can we do about it?" So I told her, "But you see, we would need to build a house and so on and so forth. Renting is going to be expensive." And she said, "No, we can rent because somebody wants to go to have a room." So it's like after 2 months, it was not possible like within 2 or 3 days or a week. But after a month, she was able to, 2 months, were able to get the money and rent that place. Yeah.
So 2 months, 2 months. I just want to really
After 2
stress
months,
from
yeah. So we
being in the
stepped
prison,
right away.
identifying need to the point that they open
Yeah.
their doors for the first woman
Yes.
to join. So that was one of the things that really stood out to me. And I just know, at least from my experience, sometimes these things can take years, but
That's
here,
extraordinary.
yeah, right. It really is extraordinary. Francis, let's move on and talk a little bit about parents inside and the kind of the support you're doing for, parents inside. And then I'll give a little
So
bit of
inside the prison, what we are doing for these people in the prison, number one, the gateway was the prayers and preaching and just counseling them. And so when we started doing that, the prison officers asked us, "What else can you do for the people in the prison?" Because if you say you want to preach, you want to pray, we have people inside the prison who can pray and even preach better than you. Can you do something different? So that struck me with Ellen, my wife. It struck me so much. And I said, "What should we do?" Because myself had been incarcerated for 2 months. It's quite a story. I had a business I was doing, and these people maliced me. They bribed the police and they put me in prison. And I was there on remand. The case was not heard. I was just released after 2 months and told to just go home. Yeah. So I'd seen prisoners suffer. I'd seen families suffer. Even my mother had suffered. And actually, she died after being released like 8 months down the road. And I'd seen the needs and I'd written a concept. That's where Wells of Hope was founded. But I knew it was very difficult to start right away. But when we started visiting the prisons, preaching and counseling the prisoners, we were challenged. And then we came back on the drawing board and we said, what do we do? So we started with the Christmas parties. The Christmas parties led to paying tuition fee for the children in the community. And after that, we realized that was not working well, because it was one thing to take the tuition fee into the community, to the schools, but it was another thing to ensure the children really, really went to class. So that motivated us to start our own schools. That is in 2010. Yeah, because the charity started in 2002. So in 2010, we started the schools. But in the prison, going back to the prison, is having that interaction with the people in the prison, the prayers, the counseling, helped us to connect with them, to get trust from them. And then also, the other thing is, we got a Canadian charity, it's called Stephen Lewis Foundation, in 2006, that gave us our first donation, what I would call that the international donation. It was 10,000 Canadian dollars. And that money, we used it to do HIV/AIDS related project. Maybe for people who do want to start like us, it's always good to tune into what the funder wants. I'd seen that the people in prison were suffering from HIV/AIDS. There were so many cases, people were dying. And then Stephen Lewis Foundation were sponsoring or were giving grants for HIV/AIDS. So we took them a proposal, and we told them, there are people in prison, can we do a project there? So what they gave us, we used that money to buy food for people who are living with HIV/AIDS, to do counseling, and also to do trainings on HIV/AIDS, and training counselors within the prison. We still do that up to now. You can imagine, since 2006, the Canadian charity, Stephen Lewis Foundation, has continued to give us money to do that. So we still take the food for people in prison who are living with HIV/AIDS, and we also do what? We also offer the counseling, the training, and also that money, we have been using it to pay school fees. We started with a few children. With their money now, we are able to sponsor about 30 children with a grant that they give us. So the fund that the Canadian charity gave us formed like a platform or a foundation for everybody, even, I should say, even INSIP, as a matter of fact, because that's where I was able to get all this experience and then connect with everybody, for those who know the INSIP story. And that's how I was able to connect with all of you. So it has been one thing leading to the other. So we offer the HIV/AIDS programs in the prison, and also we still do the prison ministry. And also, obviously, we take children to see their parents in prison. And also the women's safe home connects so much, because before the woman comes, we prepare them. So we go, like tomorrow, I'm going to the prison, I'm going to meet the women, and I'm going to tell them about the women's safe home, because every time they need to be educated, and also they need to be prepared before they come. Essentially, that's what we are doing. Sometimes some charities work with us, other charities who want to take donations, like at Christmas time, Easter time, they want to take in food and also games. So we are also a gateway through other charities can go and do work in the prison and help the people in the prison. I hope that can help you understand what we do with the people in the prison.
Great. Thank you,
Right, I'm so
Francis.
sorry, I've got to go, but I didn't want to interrupt you there, Francis. I didn't want to press leave because it seemed a bit rude, but really great to see you again. Nice to connect, and I look forward to carrying on the conversation.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
Yeah,
I'll
be in touch, Francis, okay?
Sorry, I'm
coming back to Uganda. Oh, I'll come back tomorrow if I can.
Okay.
Okay, bye. Be in touch. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Sarah. One of the things that I would say, just a quick reflections, and then we'll move on with the children and families. And I would just want to be conscious of our time. I just saw our time. So much to say. So a couple of my reflections of being in the prisons. First of all, we went to maximum security prisons, and So it was, again, pretty remarkable what Wells of Hope is able to do in the prisons and even in the higher security prisons. And that said, you definitely heard that, as you know, we hear from, I think, many folks who are inside, just the challenges and struggles of being inside. Um, and some of the reflections I heard from folks is that it's just, how do I maintain my identity and myself, a sense of self-worth as the parent inside, and definitely saw tears from parents and some of their struggles. I mean, one parent said they begin to feel like they're an island, and how do I return my sense of usefulness? And it came from both fathers and mothers, the whole stigma that fathers feel they must be providers, and when they're not providers anymore to their families, they no longer feel a sense of usefulness. And then as they come home, how do I reestablish that sense of value since I've been home? And we heard from the women as well, and we certainly heard a lot about stigma, as again, I'm sure that's something many of you um, know and see with the families you work with. And one mother talked, and I thought this was so well said, is that for every year a mother does inside, her child suffers for 6 years. So just the ongoing kind of rippling effects of incarceration, and how to maintain that family unit and that sense of value of a parent from behind bars was definitely heard. The other thing, though, that I do want to stress is that we met with the officer in charge at the men's facility and one of the prison social workers. And I was impressed with, to me, we always talk about changing the culture of prisons, changing the culture of corrections, that a lot of times there's this sense that these are places, again, this is from my experience mainly in the US, that they're supposed to be spaces of rehabilitation and or habilitation for some folks, but they're not really in a space or a culture where that is valued. And that really comes from the leadership down. So when we met with the officer in charge and the social worker at the men's prison, it really did stand out to me that they saw the value of preserving the family unit, and that if they were really there to help the men that were in their custody become stronger and more productive members in society, they needed to respect and maintain the family. And that, I thought, was just a really important piece of why I think Wells of Hope is able to do the good work they're doing inside, because they do have this correctional facility leadership that understands and appreciates and values families and values seeing people in their care as not only um, folks who are incarcerated, but that they're parents themselves too. And the social worker talked about, when we see the children come in for the visits, we see the smile on the children's faces, and the incarcerated folks, we as staff see them as parents and not just as prisoners. And because so many of us are parents ourselves, we connect in a very different way. So I just wanted to kind of put a pin in those two other observations that I saw. For sake of time, I think we should keep moving. Corrine, do you have, I just want to, Sarah left, but Corrine, you have any thoughts, reflections so far on kind of what Francis has been sharing, from how they've developed their programs to some of the work inside? And then we'll switch to children and carers.
Thank you. I have some reflections, but your approach to it is talking more about this and that and that and that, the children, the families, the prison, like this. But I have some
Holistic.
overarching because I've been kind of drawing and writing up, thinking about this model in a much more macro way, and trying understanding why this is, how come this is so successful. I'm sorry to say it like that. I don't mean that it shouldn't be, but I'm just saying, in a place that is so resource strapped, it is
Yes.
extremely successful, and what are the conditions that contribute to its success. So that's
So
my
let's,
that's my bigger picture, but I know that you were going on to talk. You're talking a little more individually about all the different parts. So So
Right.
I think this bigger picture is and the time is short.
Right, exactly. So you know what? Thank you for that, Kareen, don't stay on camera here because I'm going to stay with you because we only have about 5 minutes left. So I think we should pivot to that. Again, there's just so much to share. But with our last few minutes together, I do think it's pretty valuable to talk at more of a macro level um, and just how Francis was able to build and Wells of Hope build this kind of comprehensive and elaborate program model. In Uganda and in a country that maybe some folks feel might not have as many resources as other countries and but really put together this model program. So Kareen, since you're there, would you kind of help us kind of ground that and frame that in some of your reflections? I would love to hear your larger reflections on that piece.
So so much of the success of Wells of Hope is invested in France. Yes, and Francis's moving through, different, being able, having had the opportunity to go to different places and spaces and talk about his story and talk about his work and so on. A lot of it is grounded and invested in him. A lot of it is really Francis, eh? And we want to acknowledge that. We want to acknowledge that. But how can we pull from Francis's beautiful experience and maybe help other people in other places to understand what makes something like this successful here? And one of the big things is, and I kept hearing over and over, there were so many philosophies that were shared during my time, my experience of my time in Uganda. So many philosophies. The philosophy, Francis's philosophy of friend raising. And I've shared
Yes.
that with my students over and over, and the importance of friend raising. Friend raising is what Francis does all over the world, but it's also what Brenda does in the legal aid. It's also what you do when you go on radio and talk about the work of friend. It's about building connections in a way that people feel that they could identify with this thing. And friend raising is a philosophy. It's a philosophy. We went into the prison. I mean, all right, so let's talk about family best care program. That's a philosophy that, for some children, now I don't know if it was supposed to be family-based care, but somehow in the writing of it, it's family best care. And that in itself is it has its own philosophy, that family is best. There's this cultural practice of don't ask the incarcerated parents what they've done, right? What's the crime? We're not interested in the crime because we want to continue to see them as people, as fathers, as mothers with children. Because in so many systems, it becomes the system against the criminal, right? It's and there's a demonizing of the criminal who's a parent because of the crime. But that's not happening here. There is a valuing, a continuation to value the person as the person and the roles that the person has played in their life, separate and apart from what they did to get them. There's the CEO of the prison who talked about dynamic security and an open door policy. Those are all philosophies of service. And I think that becomes really, really, really important in driving any program like this. Anywhere, anywhere. And how do we pass on this philosophy? Right? How do we share these philosophies with people so that we can apply them anywhere, wherever they are? So that's one of the things, all of these things. Then there are these macro things, right? I'm going to talk really fast. There are these macro things. One of the things I have, and it may not be a popular view, but I believe that this program is successful because globally there is an interest and people are willing to put their money behind their interest and their concern for poverty in Africa as it affects women and children. People are globally, there is a willingness from the global north to invest money, to provide grants, to provide funding to help women and children impacted by poverty. And in Africa, right? The poor starving children in Africa concept, right? I think that's a big, big, big because I could ask myself, why would it not? How could I make this work in Trinidad? And there are different dynamics. So that context, the socioeconomics in Uganda, the level of poverty, the extent of poverty, the criminalization of the poor, yes, and of course culture and traditions, the culture of large families, the traditions that may place children at risk, and so on. All of these are part of the big context of in Uganda and around this issue that helps to make this program possible. And then, of course, we can get down to the other levels, Francis's experience, firsthand experience, and some of the other things. It's also an NGO. It's also a charitable organization. And that too gives it a little bit more latitude. The gaps in the social service network also creates an opportunity for Wells of Hope. And Wells of Hope has done beautifully to respond to need, to try to be all things to all people. Everything that comes up, Francis has found a way through the support of the international people and interest group to meet the need. And it's wonderful. Is it sustainable? It becomes the big question. So there's a lot more that I can say, but that's my kind of bigger thinking and how to translate that into other territories. What do we take away? How do we take this? So we can't take it in its total because it works there. Yeah, it works there. I would like to see if it will work in other parts of Africa, in fact, in a similar kind of way. So those are just my big picture thoughts.
Thank you so much, Corrine. Of course, I knew Corrine's wisdom. Corrine really anchored us, I think, anchored me, but anchored the whole group all throughout the week and really helped help us think more deeply about all of this. And I think we are at time. And so I'm trying to thank you, remove all the pins, but I think that I'll close with a couple thoughts and then I'll turn it over to Francis for any other closing thoughts that he had. But one of the things that really did stand out to me, as Corinne was just talking about, is I think the value here in the time I had in Uganda is it really did feel like a time and space for true study and examination and deep critical thought. And I do wonder how, and we talk about this with INSIP and how to share and all the resources and knowledge, but how to build on this kind of a model, I think is really an important thing to think about. And as Corrine said, especially in how to take what we're doing all over the world and make it of value to others. So it did just in the exchange, just the knowledge exchange and just the deep learning exchange, studying growth that happens within this whole week. And I know, so I don't know, I'm still ruminating around that, but it was incredibly valuable, but it did say to me, like, how is there a way for INSIP or others to really build more exchanges, like true in-person, in-place exchange? Because I think so much happens there. And then the other thing that I will just say is that for me, I've really been in this whole space of belonging versus othering, right? Like this is just a world that I'm in. And I think we say it so often that the issues and challenges for children with incarcerated parents and family members and incarceration and its impact are universal. Yet the stories are unique, and they're unique often because of time, place, context, kind of politics. Um, but at the end of the day, what really stood out to me is this tug and pull from between loneliness and belonging. And I really do think that one of the things that makes Wells of Hope so successful is because, and I told Francis this, that Wells of Hope isn't just creating opportunities for hope, but helping realize hope for these young people. And it really does, to me, come down to the fact that Wells of Hope has created like the ultimate space of belonging, that children in Wells of Hope, these schools, living with 200 other young people who have incarcerated loved ones, is the ultimate space of feeling like they belong somewhere and that they are of value. And then I think about it in terms of creating spaces of belonging for, and Corinne talk about this with philosophies of the parents in prison. One thing I will hold up as a highlight is, music, food, dancing was just universal and huge in Uganda. And I said this to the gentleman in Africa, in the Ugandan prisons. I've been to many prisons throughout the US and throughout the world, but never, not only did the men dance, but they invited us to come and dance with them. And I have never danced in a prison ever, and especially among and with a group who was incarcerated. So again, but a space of belonging, right? And caregivers. So that to me are kind of my kind of three big takeaways, is that the issues are universal, but the stories are unique. And that I think a lot of success at the individual micro level is because of creating spaces where people who have felt so isolated and so othered by the world finally find spaces where they belong and are valued. Um, and that, and then how can we continue to learn and grow and move from this is how do we build just these deeper and richer exchanges, steady exchanges. So those are my big takeaways. And then I just have to say that at the end of the day, we just didn't have time. I feel like we should do a whole nother webinar on children and the children themselves, and bringing some of them, because they were the ones that are truly like the most amazing young people. They are the visionaries. They are the activists, and they are really the experts in this field. So continuing to find ways to elevate their voices and their space to be the leaders. So anyway, we're really over. I will give Francis the floor for the last 2 minutes just to really sum things up for us.
Yeah, you had a question you asked, how can INSEAD build on this experience, this model? And I don't know, I would invite Nancy to say something about it. What's your thought? Away from being a
It's just
passenger.
yeah, not allowed to be a passenger. No, it's a really good idea, especially if there's a way of organizing exchanges, even if it's just one or two people going to different places
Exactly.
around, sort of, students asking for placements in a different country or something. That's the type of thing that we could probably do pretty easily just through the connections that we have. And you think about places like Wells of Hope, or places like the creche work that Smita is doing in India, or there's so much that we can learn, and whether it's just even coordinating some of that. I mean, wouldn't want to make it a huge agency, but even just creating the connections and the conversations for people to create that could be something, a real opportunity. I'd be interested in that if they want to go somewhere. That'd be great.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Katie, for putting all this together. Karine, thank you so much. You really, really energized us. You made us feel like what we are doing is really worthwhile. You encouraged us. Thank you so much. And Nancy, also thank you so much, and everybody at INSEAD. Thank you. And everybody who has attended this meeting, we are glad to have you. Let's continue talking. Yeah, and keep talking, telling people about this. Next year, we shall have another study week, probably after the conference, whoever can come.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for all of this today. It's been great.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for coming and
Thank you,
showing up at
everyone. Enjoy
all
the
your
rest of your
different
day,
hours.
whatever point in the day you are.
Thanks,
Or
everyone.
night.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Take care. Good to meet you, Lovemore. Take care.